The night air hung heavy with fog as Melissa Chen, 26, left the tech company party in San Jose, California. At 11:30 p.m., co-workers watched her climb into her silver Honda Accord, the building's security lights reflecting off her sleek black hair as she waved goodbye. The road home wound through the rapidly developing Silicon Valley landscape, stretches of empty lots awaiting transformation into the tech campuses that would one day define the region. Behind her, a dark sedan followed at a distance, its headlights dimmed to near invisibility in the thick fog. By morning, Melissa's apartment remained empty, her bed untouched, her answering machine blinking with concerned messages from her mother. The silver Honda was nowhere to be found. What happened that foggy night would remain buried in darkness for 30 years, haunting Silicon Valley's bright future with a shadow from its analog past. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. On February 12, 1991, San Jose was experiencing an unusual cold snap, the kind that brings fog rolling in from the bay, blanketing the valley in a hazy shroud. The nascent tech industry was celebrating a successful product launch at Horizon Software, where early internet pioneers gathered in a converted warehouse space. The party buzzed with optimism about the digital future. Melissa Chen, a brilliant computer programmer with shoulder-length black hair, stood slightly apart from the crowd. Dressed in a deep blue blazer and black pants, she sipped sparingly from her glass of wine, checking her watch repeatedly. At 11:30 p.m., Melissa said her goodbyes, collecting her leather messenger bag and car keys. "Early meeting tomorrow," she explained to colleagues, her voice soft but confident. Her friend, David Park, walked her to the parking lot, the gravel crunching beneath their feet as the fog swirled around the few scattered cars. "You sure you're good to drive in this?" David asked, gesturing to the thick fog. Melissa nodded, her smile calm and assured. "I've driven in worse. See you tomorrow for the debugging session." She slid into her silver Honda Accord, started the engine, and pulled away, taillights quickly swallowed by the fog. The road from Horizon Software to Melissa's apartment took her through a changing landscape. Silicon Valley in 1991 was still transforming from orchards to office parks, with stretches of unlit roads connecting pockets of development. As Melissa's car navigated the curves, another vehicle appeared in her rearview mirror, headlights dimmed to near invisibility. A dark sedan, moving at precisely her speed, maintaining a consistent distance. Too far to identify, too close to ignore. The fog made everything seem distorted, distances hard to judge. Melissa increased her speed slightly, and the sedan matched her perfectly. No one saw when Melissa's silver Honda made its final turn. No witness observed what happened next. The fog kept its secrets, wrapping the valley in silence as profound as the digital revolution that was just beginning to transform it. The next morning, sunlight broke through Melissa's apartment window, illuminating an empty living room. Her roommate, Jennifer Wu, returned from an overnight shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Finding Melissa's room untouched, bed still made from the day before, Jennifer frowned. She dialed Melissa's office at Horizon Software. "She never misses work," Jennifer explained to the receptionist, concern growing in her voice. By noon, Jennifer filed a missing person report with the San Jose Police Department. Officer Raymond Diaz arrived at the apartment, notepad in hand. "Tell me everything you know about her movements yesterday," Diaz requested, his experienced eyes scanning the apartment for any signs of disturbance. Jennifer described the product launch party, the expected time of return, Melissa's perfect attendance record at work. As Jennifer spoke, she handed Officer Diaz a photograph of Melissa smiling confidently at a company picnic, black hair framing a face both intellectual and warm. Diaz studied the image carefully, noting the details, then promised an immediate search. Within hours, the disappearance of Melissa Chen rippled through San Jose's tech community. Horizon Software's employees organized search parties, distributing flyers with her photo throughout the city. By evening, local news stations picked up the story. Rising tech star Melissa Chen missing after company event, the anchors announced, her professional headshot filling the screen. Silicon Valley, still small enough to function like a community, buzzed with concern. A young woman with a promising future had vanished without explanation. Police traced Melissa's expected route home. Patrol cars crawling along the fog-prone roads, officers scanning ditches and embankments for any sign of the silver Honda. No skid marks, no broken glass, no evidence of a crash. It was as if Melissa and her car had been digitally deleted from reality. Detective Sarah Kovacs was assigned as lead investigator, a veteran officer who had worked in San Jose since before technology transformed the region. In her initial assessment, she outlined 3 possibilities: accident, voluntary disappearance, or foul play. The accident theory seemed most plausible at first. The fog that night had been exceptionally thick, and the roads Melissa traveled had several dangerous curves. Perhaps her car had veered off into one of the many undeveloped areas, hidden from casual view. Jennifer Wu vehemently rejected the second theory. Melissa wouldn't leave without telling anyone. She had just received a promotion. She was working on breakthrough software. Her mother was flying in next weekend for a visit. The facts aligned with Jennifer's assessment. Melissa had no apparent reason to disappear voluntarily. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The third possibility, foul play, slowly gained traction as days passed without sign of Melissa or her car. San Jose, despite its growing wealth and technological optimism, was not immune to crime. The tech industry's rise created stark economic divides, with new money flowing into some areas while others struggled. Horizon Software responded swiftly, posting a $50,000 reward for information. Melissa's photo appeared on billboards throughout the Bay Area, her dark eyes gazing out from above highways and intersections. Her parents flew in from Taiwan, their faces drawn with worry as they made televised pleas for their daughter's safe return. At Horizon, employees wore blue ribbons, the color of Melissa's blazer the night she disappeared. David Park, the last known person to see her, replayed their final conversation endlessly in his mind, searching for any missed clue. She seemed completely normal, maybe a little quieter than usual, but that wasn't unusual before a big meeting. Detective Kovacs interviewed everyone at the product launch party, constructing a minute-by-minute timeline of the evening. Melissa had stayed for exactly 2 hours, spoken with 14 different people, consumed 1 glass of wine. Nothing in these interactions raised red flags. The investigation expanded to Melissa's professional life. As a programmer working on early internet security protocols, she had access to sensitive information. Could her disappearance be related to her work? Horizon executives cooperated fully, opening their project files to police scrutiny. Nothing unusual appeared in her work history. Melissa was by all accounts brilliant but straightforward. A talented programmer with no involvement in corporate espionage or questionable dealings. Her bank accounts showed no unusual activity, her phone records nothing suspicious. 2 weeks after Melissa vanished, the first significant lead emerged. A gas station attendant on the outskirts of San Jose reported seeing a silver Honda matching Melissa's car description around midnight on February 12th. The driver had kept her face turned away from the security cameras and had paid cash for fuel. This sighting complicated the investigation. If it was indeed Melissa, why would she deliberately avoid being identified? And if it wasn't her, who was driving her car, and where was Melissa? The security footage, grainy and low resolution by modern standards, provided few answers. As winter turned to spring, the case gradually faded from headlines. Silicon Valley continued its relentless evolution, with Horizon Software eventually being acquired by a larger tech company. Melissa's desk was cleared out, her projects reassigned. The blue ribbons disappeared from lapels. Detective Kovacs refused to let the case grow cold. keeping Melissa's photo pinned to her desk even as new assignments demanded attention. Every few months she re-interviewed key witnesses, hoping time might have shaken loose forgotten details. Jennifer Wu eventually moved out of the apartment she had shared with Melissa, unable to bear the emptiness of her roommate's untouched room. David Park left Horizon for a startup, carrying with him the weight of being the last known person to see Melissa alive. The Chen family returned to Taiwan, leaving behind a dedicated phone line for any news about their daughter. By 1995, the Melissa Chen case was officially classified as cold. Detective Kovacs filed her meticulous notes, each page a testament to an investigation that had exhausted every conventional avenue without resolution. The reward money remained unclaimed. The silver Honda was never found. San Jose transformed around the absence. The empty lots where officers had searched became corporate campuses. The fog-prone roads were widened, straightened, illuminated. Silicon Valley accelerated into its digital future, leaving Melissa's story as an analog mystery from its formative years. For the Chen family, time brought no comfort. Each birthday, each holiday, each achievement in the tech world that Melissa would have celebrated became another reminder of their loss. Her mother kept a shrine in their Taiwan home, refreshing the flowers weekly, speaking to her daughter's photo as if she might somehow answer. In San Jose, the case became something of a local legend. Newer tech employees heard whispers of the programmer who disappeared in the early days. Some claimed her ghost haunted the former Horizon software building. Others speculated she had stolen valuable code and started a new life elsewhere. Detective Sarah Kovacs retired in 2010, the Chen case the only significant investigation of her career that remained unresolved. At her retirement party, she made a quiet promise to Melissa's photo: "Someone else will finish what I started. Someone will find you." She could not have known that her promise would take another decade to fulfill, or that the resolution would come from a direction no one had anticipated. Using technology, Melissa herself had helped pioneer in those early days of Silicon Valley. The truth waited patiently, buried under years of silence and fog, ready to emerge when the right person looked in the right place with the right tools. For Melissa Chen, justice would arrive 30 years late, but it would arrive with a force that would shake Silicon Valley to its core. The Chen case remained a painful reminder of the darker side of Silicon Valley's glittering rise. As the digital revolution transformed the world, the simple question of what happened to a talented young programmer on a foggy night in 1991 lingered like a corrupted file in the region's memory. 20 years after Melissa Chen vanished, Silicon Valley had transformed beyond recognition. The converted warehouse where Horizon Software once celebrated its product launch was now a sleek co-working space. The foggy roads Melissa had navigated were lined with gleaming corporate headquarters. The digital revolution she had helped pioneer had reached maturity. In January 2021, the California Bureau of Investigation established a cold case digital task force, leveraging modern technology to solve long-dormant investigations. The task force combined veteran detectives with data scientists and digital forensics experts, approaching old mysteries with new tools. Detective Victor Reyes, lead investigator for the task force, was drawn to the Chen case immediately. As he reviewed the yellowed file, a photograph slipped out. Melissa Chen smiling in her blue blazer, eyes bright with intelligence. The contrast between her promising future and sudden disappearance struck Reyes deeply. "This one," he told the team during their first briefing. "Silicon Valley was built on innovation, while this case gathered dust. It's time we applied that same innovation to finding Melissa." The task force's first action was digitizing every document from the original investigation. Detective Kovacs' handwritten notes, witness statements, and evidence logs were scanned and processed through advanced text recognition software. This created a searchable database where connections impossible to spot manually might emerge. Meanwhile, the forensic team re-examined physical evidence using techniques unavailable in 1991. Fibers from Melissa's desk chair, preserved in evidence bags for decades, underwent advanced DNA extraction. Items from her apartment, stored in the property room all these years, were tested for touch DNA that might have been missed. Reyes also ordered a complete reanalysis of the gas station footage showing a silver Honda similar to Melissa's. Using AI-enhanced image processing, they attempted to clarify the grainy video, hoping to confirm whether the driver was Melissa or someone else. The results were disappointing. The enhancement revealed little beyond what was already known. The figure pumping gas was deliberately avoiding the camera, face turned away, baseball cap pulled low. The license plate remained unreadable. Undeterred, Reyes expanded the investigation. He requested all traffic camera footage from February 1991 along Melissa's likely route. Most had been recorded over or discarded decades ago, but a few archived tapes were located in a county storage facility. These ancient VHS recordings, nearly degraded beyond use, contained a potential breakthrough. On a tape from an intersection 5 miles from the gas station, a silver Honda appeared at 12:17 a.m., turning onto a service road that led toward the foothills, away from Melissa's apartment. The image quality was poor, but digital enhancement confirmed the car model matched Melissa's Honda. More importantly, it suggested a direction of travel the original investigation hadn't pursued. Another crucial development came from the digitized case notes. Using pattern recognition software, the team identified an overlooked detail. Multiple witnesses mentioned seeing a dark sedan in the Horizon software parking lot the night of the party. The car didn't belong to any employee, but in 1991, this hadn't seemed significant enough to follow up. If we're looking at abduction rather than an accident, Reyes explained to his team, this could be our perpetrator's vehicle, the same one that followed Melissa. The service road shown in the traffic camera footage led to what was now a nature preserve, but had been largely undeveloped in 1991. Reyes organized a search of the area using ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs, trained specifically for long-decomposed remains. For 3 days, teams methodically covered the rough terrain. On the final afternoon, as the search was about to conclude, a detector operator radioed in. "I've got something large and metallic about 8 feet down in a ravine. Appears to be covered with soil and growth." The excavation began immediately. As earth was carefully removed layer by layer, the unmistakable shape of a vehicle emerged from the dirt. Corrosion had claimed much of its exterior, but patches of silver paint were still visible on the hood. When the license plate was eventually unearthed and cleaned, there was no doubt they had found Melissa Chen's Honda Accord. News of the discovery spread rapidly through the task force. Reyes supervised as the car was carefully extracted and transported to a secure facility for processing. 30 years underground had taken their toll. The interior was a mass of decay and corrosion. But beneath the driver's seat, forensic technicians made a grim discovery. Bone fragments. DNA analysis confirmed what everyone feared. The remains belonged to Melissa Chen. After 30 years, she had finally been found. The search was over, but the investigation was just beginning. Now they needed to determine how she died and who was responsible. The car itself told part of the story. Impact damage to the rear suggested Melissa's Honda had been struck from behind with considerable force, likely forcing her off the road. This aligned with the theory of the dark sedan following her that night. Inside the car, more evidence emerged. The position of the seat and mirrors indicated Melissa was driving when the car went into the ravine. Fabric fibers caught in the door handle matched the blue blazer she wore that night. Most telling was a single foreign hair found embedded in the dashboard, not Melissa's, not belonging to any known associate. This hair was carefully preserved and sent for DNA analysis. It was intact enough to yield a profile, but no match was found in any criminal database. Whoever it belonged to had never been arrested or had their DNA catalogued by law enforcement. The medical examiner's report delivered the final piece of the puzzle regarding Melissa's fate. The bone fragments showed evidence of blunt force trauma inconsistent with a car accident. She was struck with an object before or after the car went into the ravine, the examiner concluded. This was no accident, it was homicide. The task force now had confirmation of what Detective Kovac had suspected decades earlier. Melissa Chen had been murdered, her car deliberately hidden, and the killer had walked free for 30 years. Reyes called Jennifer Wu, Melissa's former roommate, now a hospital administrator in Sacramento. "We've found her," he said simply. The silence on the line stretched for several seconds before a quiet sob broke through. "After all this time," Jennifer finally whispered, "I never stopped wondering." The Chen family received the news in Taiwan with similar mixed emotions, the grief of confirmed loss tempered by relief that their daughter had finally been found. They requested Melissa's remains be returned to them for proper burial, a request the task force readily accommodated once the forensic work was complete. With Melissa found and the manner of death established, the investigation entered its most challenging phase, identifying the killer after 3 decades. Reyes called a strategy meeting, spreading the evidence across the conference table. "We know Melissa was followed from the party, forced off the road, and murdered," he summarized. The killer then concealed her car in a remote location. This wasn't random. It was planned and executed with care. Our perpetrator knew Melissa's routine and took steps to avoid detection. The team reviewed the original suspect list from 1991. Most had solid alibis that had been verified at the time. Others had died in the intervening years. A few remained viable suspects, including a rejected suitor from Melissa's graduate program and a colleague who had displayed inappropriate interest in her. But Reyes wasn't convinced any of these individuals fit the profile they were developing. "This feels like someone with a personal grudge, someone who knew Melissa well enough to predict her movements, but wasn't so close that they'd be an obvious suspect." David Park, the last known person to see Melissa alive, was now a successful tech executive in Seattle. Reyes flew there to interview him personally. 30 years older, but still recognizable from his witness photos, Park seemed genuinely shocked by the news of Melissa's discovery. "I've carried that night with me for decades," he admitted, hands trembling slightly around his coffee cup. "Always wondering if I could have done something differently. Offered to drive her home, noticed something important." Reyes studied him carefully. "Tell me again about the party. Was there anyone paying particular attention to Melissa? Anyone who seemed out of place?" Park frowned, trying to recall details from 30 years prior. "There was someone, not from our team. I assumed he was from marketing or sales. Older guy, kept watching Melissa from across the room. I remember thinking it was a bit intense, but in tech people were often awkward socially. And this was new information. Do you remember his name? What he looked like?" "I never spoke to him. Medium height, thin build. The main thing I remember was his eyes, pale blue, almost gray. Made me uncomfortable the way they followed her." This description matched no one interviewed in the original investigation. Reyes returned to San Jose with renewed purpose, directing the team to compile a complete guest list from the Horizon Software party, not just employees but vendors, clients, and plus ones. Meanwhile, another avenue opened unexpectedly. The unidentified hair from Melissa's car had yielded a partial DNA profile. Though no direct match existed in criminal databases, a forensic genealogist on the task force identified distant, familial connections. "It's like building a family tree in reverse," she explained to Reyes. "We find distant relatives in the database and work our way toward our unknown subject. It's not quick, but it can be remarkably effective." Natuteni. Over the next several weeks, the genealogist constructed an elaborate family tree, narrowing down potential suspects based on age, location, and opportunity. Simultaneously, the team worked through the expanded party guest list, identifying previously uninterviewed attendees. These parallel investigations converged on a single name: Robert Mercer, 54 in 1991. A contract security consultant who had worked briefly with Horizon Software in the months before Melissa's disappearance. Mercer had never been interviewed in the original investigation because he wasn't at the party in an official capacity. He had attended as the +1 of a marketing executive. His contract with the company had ended a week before the event, which meant his name wasn't on any employee list. The team compiled a profile on Mercer. After leaving Horizon Software, he'd worked for various tech companies throughout the 1990s, never staying anywhere longer than a year. His employment history showed a gap of several months following Melissa's disappearance. In 2003, he had moved to Arizona and largely disappeared from public records. A search of Arizona databases revealed Robert Mercer had died in 2017 of heart failure. This presented a complication. They couldn't question their suspect or obtain a direct DNA sample to confirm the match. Undeterred, Reyes obtained a warrant for Mercer's personal effects from his estate. Among the items recovered from a storage facility in Phoenix was a hairbrush. The DNA extracted from it was compared to the sample from Melissa's car. The forensics lab confirmed what the investigation had already suggested. The hair found in Melissa's car belonged to Robert Mercer. They had identified Melissa Chen's killer 30 years after her murder. But one crucial question remained unanswered. Why? What had motivated Mercer to target Melissa? The answer emerged from an unexpected source. Among Mercer's possessions was a locked metal box containing journals and newspaper clippings. The journals revealed a disturbing obsession with Melissa that had begun when they worked together at Horizon Software. Entries described watching her, following her, and detailed fantasies about a relationship that existed only in his mind. More alarming were indications that Melissa had rejected Mercer's unwanted advances and reported his behavior to management shortly before his contract ended. This rejection, combined with his termination, appeared to have triggered his deadly plan. The final journal entry from February 13, 1991, the day after Melissa disappeared, contained a chilling passage. "She left me no choice. If I couldn't have her, no one would. The fog was perfect. No one saw us leave together. No one will find her where I put her. Now she'll be mine forever." With the perpetrator identified but deceased, the task force prepared to close the case. Detective Reyes organized a press conference to announce their findings, bringing closure to a mystery that had haunted Silicon Valley for 3 decades. In a room packed with reporters and cameras, Reyes stood beside a large photograph of Melissa Chen. "Today, we can officially announce that the 1991 disappearance of Melissa Chen has been solved. Through the dedication of the Cold Case Digital Task Force and advances in forensic technology, we have determined that Ms. Chen was murdered by Robert Mercer, who died in 2017. Reyes detailed the investigation's key findings, explaining how modern methods had unlocked secrets hidden for decades. This case demonstrates that no matter how much time passes, justice remains possible. Technology, much of it developed here in Silicon Valley where Melissa once worked, has helped bring her killer to light. Jennifer Wu attended the press conference, as did former detective Sarah Kovacs, now in her 70s, but determined to witness the resolution of her most haunting case. David Park watched the announcement live, streamed from Seattle, tears in his eyes as the case that had shadowed his life finally found resolution. The Chen family, unable to attend in person, sent a statement that Reyes read aloud. "For 30 years, we have lived with uncertainty and pain. Today, we finally know what happened to our beloved daughter. While nothing can bring Melissa back to us, knowing the truth brings a measure of peace. We thank the dedicated investigators who never gave up on her. Following the press conference, a memorial service was held at the site where Melissa's car had been found. The area, now part of a nature preserve, was marked with a simple stone bearing her name and the words, "Brilliant mind, gentle spirit, never forgotten." Former colleagues from Horizon Software attended, many now industry leaders who had shaped the digital revolution Melissa had only glimpsed in its infancy. They shared memories of her intelligence, her quiet determination, her visionary ideas about what technology could become. Detective Reyes stood slightly apart, watching the gathering. Sarah Kovacs approached, leaning heavily on a cane. "Thank you," she said simply. "I never thought I'd see this day." Reyes nodded. "We stand on the shoulders of your work. You never let her be forgotten." As the memorial concluded, Jennifer Wu placed a blue ribbon, the same color as the blazer Melissa wore on her last night, beside the stone. "The not knowing was the hardest part," she told Reyes. "Even with all the pain of confirmation, there's relief in finally having answers." The case of Melissa Chen became a landmark for the Cold Case Digital Task Force, demonstrating how modern technology could illuminate the darkest mysteries of the past. The techniques pioneered in her investigation were applied to other unsolved cases, bringing resolution to dozens of families who had waited decades for answers. For Silicon Valley, Melissa's story served as a sobering reminder of the human cost behind its glittering success. In an industry obsessed with moving forward, her case emphasized the importance of remembering and resolving the past. As Detective Victor Reyes returned to his office after the memorial, he placed Melissa's photograph back in its file. The case was solved, but something about her story would stay with him. In a world of rapid technological change, the pursuit of justice remained timeless, a human constant in a digital age. The truth about Melissa Chen had waited patiently for 30 years, hidden beneath layers of soil and silence. But as long as someone remembered, as long as someone cared enough to look, even the deepest buried secrets could eventually find their way into the light. The resolution of Melissa Chen's case sparked a cascade of changes within Silicon Valley's approach to both safety and history. 6 months after the press conference, Detective Reyes found himself sitting in the sleek headquarters of the Silicon Valley Historical Society, a newly formed organization dedicated to preserving the human stories behind the digital revolution. The society had invited Reyes to discuss the Chen investigation as part of their inaugural lecture series. Facing an audience of tech workers, historians, and community members, Reyes found himself reflecting on how the case had resonated far beyond its immediate resolution. "Technology solved Melissa's case," Reyes explained to the rapt audience. "But it was human persistence that kept it alive long enough for that technology to exist." Detective Kovacs refused to let Melissa become just another file in storage. The Chen family never stopped hoping for answers. Jennifer Wu and David Park carried the weight of her memory for 30 years. In the front row, Sarah Kovacs nodded slowly, her eyes bright despite her frail appearance. At 78, she'd become something of a local hero since the case closed, the detective who never forgot. After the lecture, a young programmer approached Reyes. "I started at a company that eventually bought what remained of Horizon Software's assets," she explained. "We've been working on a memorial scholarship in Melissa's name for women in computing. Her story has become important to many of us who never knew her." This was just one example of how Melissa's legacy had grown since the resolution of her case. The tech industry, often criticized for its relentless focus on the future at the expense of reflection, had found in Melissa a symbol of its own complex history, a reminder of the human lives behind the digital transformation. The Cold Case Digital Task Force experienced its own transformation following the Chen success. What began as an experimental initiative became a permanent division within California law enforcement with expanded funding and resources. Police departments across the country began establishing similar units, recognizing how technology could breathe new life into dormant investigations. Reyes was promoted to lead the expanded task force, which now occupied an entire floor of the bureau building. Walking through the open workspace, he observed his team applying techniques pioneered during the Chen investigation to dozens of cold cases. The Chen methodology, as it became known in law enforcement circles, combined traditional detective work with cutting-edge digital forensics. Old evidence was digitized and analyzed using AI pattern recognition. Familial DNA searches were conducted through expanded databases. Historical data from various sources was cross-referenced to reveal connections invisible to earlier investigators. Among the cases benefiting from these methods was the 1987 disappearance of college student Miguel Sanchez from Sacramento, missing for even longer than Melissa. Using techniques refined during the Chen investigation, Reyes' team identified remains found in a remote area as belonging to Miguel. The case had gone cold for different reasons than Melissa's, but the resolution brought similar relief to a family that had waited decades for answers. The Chen case also inspired Silicon Valley to confront its history in new ways. Tech companies began establishing archives to preserve their early stories and artifacts, recognizing the value in understanding their origins. Several firms implemented safety measures inspired directly by Melissa's story: improved parking lot security, escort services for employees working late, and stronger vetting procedures for contractors. 6 months after the lecture at the Historical Society, Jennifer Wu contacted Reyes with an unexpected development. "I found something while cleaning out my storage unit," she explained when they met at a coffee shop near the old Horizon Software location. "I'm not sure if it matters now, but I thought you should see it." She handed him a small, battered notebook with a blue cover. This was Melissa's. She left it at our apartment the day before she disappeared. "With everything that happened, I completely forgot about it until now." Reyes carefully opened the notebook. The pages contained Melissa's precise handwriting, mostly technical notes about coding projects, but toward the back, several entries that caught his attention. February 10th, 1991. One entry read, "RM watching me again today? Reported to HR, but they seemed unconcerned since his contract ends this week. Said to notify security if he approaches me at the launch party." Reyes looked up. "RM, Robert Mercer." Jennifer nodded. "I read through it before bringing it to you. She never mentioned him to me directly, but it seems he had been making her uncomfortable for some time." The notebook contained several other references to Mercer's unwanted attention in the weeks before her death. In the final entry, dated February 12th, the day she disappeared, Melissa had written, "Launch party tonight. Hoping RM stays away. David offered to walk me to my car. We'll be glad when this project is over and I can focus on the security protocol work." The discovery added painful clarity to an already solved case. Melissa had been aware of the danger Mercer posed, but had been failed by inadequate protections. Her concerns, documented but not sufficiently addressed, had predicted her own fate. Would it have made a difference if this had been found in 1991? Jennifer asked quietly. Reyes considered the question carefully. It would have pointed the investigation directly to Mercer much sooner. Whether that would have led to his arrest then is hard to say. The physical evidence was still buried with the car, but it certainly would have made him the primary suspect. This revelation prompted Reyes to take an unprecedented step. He organized a meeting between Silicon Valley's top security officers and human resources directors, sharing the details of Melissa's notebook with their permission. The message was clear. Warning signs had been documented and ignored, with deadly consequences. "This isn't about assigning blame 30 years later," Reyes told the assembled executives. "It's about learning from history so similar tragedies can be prevented today." Melissa Chen reported harassment and was told to handle it herself. Her concerns were minimized because her harasser was leaving the company. These are patterns we still see repeating. Eddie, the meeting resulted in the establishment of the Melissa Chen Protocol, a set of standardized procedures for handling workplace harassment reports within the tech industry. Companies pledged to take all reports seriously, regardless of the status of the person involved, and to maintain records of concerning behavior even after an individual left the organization. For the Chen family, these developments brought a bittersweet sense of meaning to their daughter's tragic end. Her father, now in his 80s, wrote to Reyes, "To know that Melissa's story is saving others gives us some comfort in our grief. She wanted to build systems that protected people. In a way, through your work and these new protocols, she still is." On the 1-year anniversary of the case's resolution, a more formal memorial was held. The spot where Melissa's car had been found was now marked with a small pavilion, a peaceful place for reflection within the nature preserve. The structure, designed by a prominent architect who had known Melissa at university, incorporated elements of both traditional Chinese design and Silicon Valley modernism. At the dedication ceremony, former Detective Kovacs spoke briefly, her voice thin but determined. "For 30 years I carried Melissa with me. Now I can finally know that she rests in peace and that her story continues to protect others." David Park unveiled a plaque bearing not just Melissa's name and dates, but also the words, "Her code lives on." The phrase had multiple meanings, both her actual programming work, which had contributed to early internet security, and now the code of conduct that bore her name. The ceremony was covered by major media outlets, bringing Melissa's story to national attention. Technology publications ran features on cold cases solved through digital forensics, with the Chen investigation as the centerpiece. Law enforcement journals published detailed analyses of the methodologies that had finally brought resolution. As attention grew, Reyes found himself reflecting on the paradoxical nature of cold case work. Success meant bringing painful truth to light, often confirming the worst fears of those who had waited years for answers. Yet with that pain came closure, and with closure, the possibility of healing. Jennifer Wu articulated this complexity when interviewed for a documentary about the case. Finding out what happened to Melissa was devastating. It confirmed that she suffered, that she was afraid, that someone deliberately harmed her. But not knowing was its own special torment. The truth, however painful, allows for mourning to truly begin. The documentary, titled Silicon Valley's Analog Nightmare, explored not just the details of Melissa's case, but the broader context of safety for women in the early tech industry. It featured interviews with female programmers who had worked alongside Melissa, many sharing their own experiences of harassment and fear during that era. One of these women, Patricia Young, now a senior executive at a major tech company, described how Melissa's case had stayed with her throughout her career. "Every time I worked late, every time I walked alone to my car, I thought of Melissa. Her disappearance was a shadow over all of us. Now that we know what happened, that shadow has a name and a shape. It's no longer a formless fear." The impact of Melissa's story extended into education as well. Universities with computer science programs began incorporating ethics and safety discussions into their curriculum, using her case as an example of how workplace dynamics can have life or death consequences. Stanford University, where Melissa had completed her undergraduate degree before joining Horizon Software, established an annual lecture series examining the intersection of technology and personal safety. The inaugural speaker was Jennifer Wu, who shared her memories of Melissa as both a brilliant programmer and a caring friend. Melissa believed technology could make the world better and safer, Jennifer told the audience of students and faculty. She was working on security protocols when most people barely understood what the internet was. She saw both the promise and the potential dangers of our connected future. For Detective Reyes, the ripple effects of the Chen case continued to expand in unexpected ways. A year after the pavilion dedication, he received a call from a detective in Seattle, investigating a cold case with similarities to Melissa's. "We have a tech worker who disappeared in 1993, the Seattle detective explained. "After reading about your methods with the Chen case, we've reopened our investigation using the same approach. We're already seeing promising leads. Similar calls came from across the country. Investigators inspired by the Chen resolution to apply new technologies to their own stubborn mysteries." Reyes found himself becoming something of a mentor to other cold case detectives, sharing the methodologies that had brought Melissa justice after 3 decades. The cold case digital task force continued to grow, eventually moving to its own dedicated facility equipped with state-of-the-art laboratories. On the wall of the main conference room hung a simple photograph, Melissa Chen in her blue blazer, smiling with quiet confidence at the camera. "She's our reminder," Reyes explained to new team members. "Every cold case is someone's Melissa, someone who matters, someone worth finding, no matter how much time has passed." As technology continued its relentless evolution, the task force evolved with it, incorporating new tools and techniques as they became available. DNA analysis became more sophisticated, able to extract profiles from increasingly degraded samples. Artificial intelligence improved at recognizing patterns across disparate data sources. Digital archives expanded, making historical information more accessible than ever. 3 years after Melissa's case was solved, the task force achieved another breakthrough, identifying the perpetrator in a series of unsolved homicides from the early 1980s using genetic genealogy techniques, refined during the Chen investigation. The victims had been young women working in various industries with no apparent connection, until modern data analysis revealed a pattern invisible to earlier investigators. At the press conference announcing this resolution, Reyes acknowledged the debt owed to the Chen case. Each solved mystery teaches us something that helps with the next one. Melissa's case showed us the power of persistence, the value of preserving evidence for decades, and the importance of combining traditional detective work with cutting-edge technology. The parents of one of the newly identified victims approached Reyes after the press conference. "We've waited 40 years to know what happened to our daughter," the father said, voice breaking. "Hearing about Melissa Chen gave us hope that our wait might finally end too. This pattern repeated with each new resolution, families finding comfort not just in answers about their own loved ones, but in the knowledge that their cases had contributed to a methodology that would help others." On what would have been Melissa's 60th birthday, a special commemoration was held at the pavilion bearing her name. Among those attending was a young woman who introduced herself to Reyes as Michelle Chen, Melissa's niece, born years after her aunt's disappearance. "I never knew her," Michelle explained, "but I grew up with her story. My father always said I had her aptitude for computers. I'm working in cybersecurity now, continuing what she started in a way." Michelle shared that she had been accepted into a prestigious technology fellowship named in Melissa's honor. "The selection committee said my application essay about my aunt's influence on my life moved them deeply. It's strange to be shaped so profoundly by someone I never met." As the commemoration concluded, Michelle asked to speak privately with Reyes. "There's something I've wanted to ask you," she said, as they walked through the quiet preserve. "Was it worth it? Solving the case after so many years? Does it really bring closure, or just confirm what everyone already feared?" Reyes considered the question carefully. "Your aunt's case taught me that closure isn't just about confirming facts, it's about restoring dignity. When someone disappears without explanation, they become defined by that mystery. By finding Melissa and uncovering the truth, we allowed her to be remembered as a complete person again, not just as the woman who vanished." Michelle nodded slowly. "My father said something similar when the case was solved. He said that for 30 years, whenever he thought of his sister, his first thought was always, what happened to her? And now, even though the answer is painful, he can think of who she was instead of how she was lost. As they returned to the pavilion, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the memorial stone. Michelle placed her hand on the cool surface, tracing her aunt's name with her fingertips. It's strange to think that if things had been different, if someone had taken her concerns seriously, if security had been better, if technology had advanced faster, I might have known her. That's why her story matters so much, Reyes replied. Not just because we found answers, but because those answers are changing how things work today. The Melissa Chen protocol has already prevented similar situations. Companies are taking harassment reports seriously in ways they never did before. Security measures have improved dramatically. A digital legacy from an analog tragedy, Michelle said softly. As they prepared to leave, Michelle handed Reyes a small package. My father wanted you to have this. It belonged to Melissa. Inside was a simple silver pin in the shape of a circuit board pattern. She wore it on her blazer lapel, Michelle explained. My grandparents gave it to her when she graduated. They kept it all these years, but they feel it belongs with the person who finally brought her home. Reyes accepted the gift with profound gratitude. Later, he placed it in a small frame beside Melissa's photograph in the task force headquarters, a tangible reminder of the person behind the case that had redefined cold case investigation. The story of Melissa Chen continued to resonate throughout Silicon Valley and beyond, a counterpoint to the industry's relentless focus on the future. It reminded those building tomorrow's technology of the importance of remembering yesterday's lessons. It taught that no case is truly cold as long as someone cares enough to keep looking. And it demonstrated that even in the most technical of fields, the human element remains fundamental, both in the tragedies that occur and in the determination to resolve them. For Detective Victor Reyes and the Cold Case Digital Task Force, Melissa's case became not an ending but a beginning, the foundation for a new approach to justice that would bring answers to countless families who had waited decades for truth. Her story, once a whispered mystery in Silicon Valley's early days, now served as a powerful testament to the enduring pursuit of justice in a rapidly changing world. The story of Melissa Chen and the Cold Case Digital Task Force evolved into a powerful legacy that transformed not just law enforcement, but society's approach to both technology and justice. 5 years after solving Melissa's case, Detective Victor Reyes found himself addressing a crowded auditorium at a national conference on cold case investigation. Technology alone didn't solve Melissa Chen's murder, Reyes explained to hundreds of law enforcement professionals from across the country. It was the combination of human determination and digital innovation that finally brought her justice. This synthesis represents the future of investigative work. The Cold Case Digital Task Force had grown beyond its California origins to become a national model. Similar units now operated in 38 states, all using variations of the Chen methodology. Over 100 long-dormant cases had been resolved, bringing answers to families who had waited decades. Jennifer Wu, now serving as a civilian advisor to the task force, joined Reyes on stage. Melissa would be amazed to see how her story has created this ripple effect, she told the audience. She was always fascinated by connections, how one line of code could influence an entire system. Her case has done exactly that for investigative work. The technology industry had been equally transformed by Melissa's legacy. The Melissa Chen protocol for workplace safety had been adopted by over 2,000 companies worldwide, evolving from its origins in Silicon Valley to become a global standard. Reports of harassment were now taken seriously, tracked systematically, and addressed promptly, regardless of the position of those involved. During a break in the conference, Reyes was approached by a woman he didn't recognize. She introduced herself as Catherine Mercer. Robert Mercer was my uncle, she said quietly. I wanted to thank you for solving the case, even though it revealed something terrible about my family. Reyes was momentarily speechless. In all the years since resolving the case, no one from Mercer's family had ever made contact. After the truth came out, our family was devastated, Catherine continued. We never suspected what he had done. It was like discovering a stranger had been living among us. But knowing was better than not knowing, for us and especially for the Chen family. She explained that her family had established a scholarship fund in Melissa's name. We can't undo what he did, but we can try to honor the brilliant woman whose life he took. Every year, the scholarship supports young women pursuing careers in cybersecurity. This unexpected connection represented yet another branch in the complex legacy of the case. Even the perpetrator's family had found a way to contribute to healing and progress. That evening, Reyes called Melissa Chen to share this development. Michelle, now 33 and a rising star in the cybersecurity field, had maintained contact with the detective over the years. It's strange to think about, she reflected. My aunt's killer's family is now helping people like me pursue the career she never got to complete. There's something powerful about that circle closing. Michelle had become an important voice in her own right, frequently speaking about her aunt's legacy and the importance of workplace safety. Her perspective as both a family member and a woman in tech gave her insights that resonated deeply with audiences. The most valuable thing that came from solving my aunt's case wasn't justice for one person, Michelle often said in her presentations. It was justice becoming more accessible for everyone. The techniques developed to find her have now brought answers to hundreds of families. The technical innovations sparked by the Chen investigation continued to evolve. The task force had pioneered methods of extracting and analyzing DNA from increasingly degraded samples, developed more sophisticated algorithms for pattern recognition across disparate data sources, and refined approaches to digital genealogy. These advances extended beyond cold case work to influence contemporary investigations as well. The emphasis on preserving evidence with future technology in mind had become standard practice throughout law enforcement. Detectives now routinely documented crime scenes with three-dimensional scanning, collected and stored biological samples using methods designed for long-term preservation, and digitized all case materials in formats designed for future analysis. Melissa's case taught us that evidence considered worthless today might be priceless tomorrow, Reyes explained during a training session for new recruits. We now approach every investigation with the humility to recognize that tomorrow's technology might reveal what today's cannot. This shift in perspective rippled beyond criminal justice into other fields. Medical researchers adopted similar approaches to preserving biological samples that couldn't be fully analyzed with current technology. Archaeologists applied cold case digital task force methodologies to ancient mysteries. Historians used pattern recognition algorithms developed for the Chen investigation to identify connections in historical records. 6 years after the case resolution, Reyes was approached by the Smithsonian Institution with an unusual request. They wanted to create an exhibit about Melissa Chen's case as part of a larger exploration of how technology transforms society. We're looking at pivotal moments where digital innovation fundamentally changed human experience, the curator explained. Melissa's case represents a turning point in how we approach justice and truth-seeking in the digital age. The exhibit opened the following year, featuring carefully preserved artifacts from the investigation alongside interactive displays explaining the technical innovations that had solved the case. Visitors could explore how DNA analysis, digital image enhancement, and pattern recognition algorithms had worked together to uncover the truth after 30 years. The Chen family, now elderly but determined to attend, traveled from Taiwan for the opening. Melissa's father, walking with a cane but standing tall at 92, spoke briefly at the ceremony. My daughter loved technology because she saw its potential to connect people and reveal truth, he said, his voice soft but clear. She would be proud to know that her story has helped bring truth to so many others. Jennifer Wu and David Park attended as well, now in their 60s, but still carrying vivid memories of their friend from 35 years earlier. They stood beside a display featuring Melissa's recovered belongings, her messenger bag, her weathered Nokia phone, the blue blazer preserved despite decades underground. "It's strange seeing her things behind glass," Jennifer whispered to Reyes, "but there's something right about it too. Her story deserves to be remembered." The exhibit became one of the Smithsonian's most visited installations that year, drawing attention not just from those interested in true crime, but from technologists, educators, and policymakers. It sparked conversations about the intersection of technology and justice, the importance of preserving cold case evidence, and the human stories behind digital innovation. Following the exhibit's success, several universities incorporated the Chen case into their curriculum. Stanford established a cross-disciplinary course combining computer science, ethics, and criminal justice, using Melissa's story to explore how technology both creates and solves societal challenges. The professor who developed the course explained its purpose. Students entering tech fields need to understand both the tremendous power they wield and the profound responsibility that comes with it. Melissa Chen's story illustrates that connection perfectly. She was developing tools to protect people when she herself needed protection that didn't yet exist. The course included guest lectures from Reyes, Jennifer Wu, and occasionally Melissa Chen, each offering their unique perspective on how the case had transformed their understanding of technology's role in society. During one such lecture, a student asked Reyes whether he believed all cold cases would eventually be solved, given enough technological advancement. "Technology is a powerful tool, but it's not magic," Reyes responded thoughtfully. "Some cases will remain unsolved despite our best efforts. What technology does offer is the possibility that cases once considered hopeless might find resolution. That possibility is enough to justify preserving every piece of evidence, following every protocol, and never giving up." This philosophy of persistent hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges became central to the Cold Case Digital Task Force's identity. Each year, on the anniversary of Melissa's case resolution, the task force held a ceremony honoring not just the cases they had solved, but those still waiting for answers. During one such ceremony, Reyes unveiled a wall of photographs in the task force headquarters, faces of people whose cases remained open despite years of investigation. "These aren't failures," he told his team. "They're promises we haven't yet fulfilled. Every technological advancement brings us one step closer to keeping those promises." This refusal to accept permanent defeat resonated deeply with families of missing persons across the country. Support groups began inviting task force members to speak, finding comfort in the message that no case was truly cold as long as evidence existed and technology continued to advance. The mother of a young man missing for 20 years expressed this sentiment after attending one such presentation. "For 2 decades, I've been told to accept that I'll never know what happened to my son. Today is the first time I've felt genuine hope that answers might still come, that his story isn't over." This renewed hope inspired many families to revisit cases long considered closed. Evidence was re-examined, witness statements reconsidered, timelines reconstructed. In several instances, these fresh looks at old cases revealed overlooked details that, combined with new technology, led to breakthroughs. On the 10th anniversary of the Chen case resolution, the task force organized a national symposium, bringing together law enforcement, technologists, families, and advocates. The event, held in San Jose near where Melissa had lived and worked, drew participants from across the country and around the world. The symposium opened with a video message from the now-retired Sarah Kovacs, too frail at 88 to attend in person, but determined to participate. Her image, projected on a large screen, brought the audience to their feet in spontaneous applause. When I began investigating Melissa Chen's disappearance in 1991, we were still filing reports on typewriters, Kovac said with a gentle smile. I couldn't have imagined the technologies that would eventually solve her case. But I knew that as long as someone remembered her, as long as someone kept looking, there was hope for answers. This theme of remembrance as an act of justice permeated the symposium. Speakers from various fields explored how maintaining the memory of missing and murdered individuals serves not just their families, but society as a whole, preserving knowledge, spurring innovation, and ensuring that past tragedies inform future protections. Melissa Chen delivered the keynote address, standing confidently before the gathered crowd. My aunt exists for me in stories and photographs, she began. I never heard her voice or felt her embrace, but through the work of dedicated investigators, through the memories of those who loved her, and through the changes her case inspired, I've come to know her in profound ways. She continued, Melissa's legacy isn't just about solving one case, or even hundreds of cases. It's about recognizing that every unsolved mystery represents a human being who deserves to be found, remembered, and honored. It's about understanding that justice has no expiration date. Following the symposium, Reyes took a personal day to visit the Melissa Chen Memorial Pavilion. The structure, now a decade old, had weathered gracefully, its clean lines and peaceful setting drawing visitors from around the world. Some came because they knew Melissa's story, others simply seeking a quiet place for reflection. As Reyes sat on a bench within the pavilion, a light fog rolled in from the bay, not unlike the fog that had shrouded San Jose on the night Melissa disappeared. But unlike that night, when fog had concealed a terrible truth, this mist seemed to connect past and present, wrapping the memorial in a gentle embrace. Reyes touched the small silver circuit board pin he still carried with him, a tangible reminder of the woman whose case had defined his career and transformed countless lives. He reflected on the journey from that first yellowed file to the global movement it had inspired. The path of justice was rarely straight or simple. It wound through decades, followed technological evolutions, and ultimately depended on human determination to keep moving forward despite obstacles. Melissa's case had illuminated that path for many others, showing that even the coldest cases could find resolution with the right combination of persistence and innovation. As Reyes prepared to leave the pavilion, he noticed a young couple approaching. The woman carried a small bouquet of blue flowers, which she carefully placed beside Melissa's memorial stone. They didn't know Reyes, and he didn't introduce himself, but he overheard a fragment of their conversation. "She's the reason I felt safe reporting what happened at work," the woman explained to her companion. "Because of her story, they took it seriously. They protected me. I wanted to thank her." This simple act of gratitude from a stranger who had never known Melissa personally embodied everything the case had come to represent. How one story, finally told after decades of silence, could create ripples of change that continued to spread outward, touching lives far removed from its origin. Reyes walked back to his car with renewed purpose. Tomorrow would bring another cold case file to his desk, another family waiting for answers, another mystery that current technology might or might not be able to solve. But Melissa Chen's legacy ensured that whatever the challenges, the search for truth would continue, persistent, innovative, and ultimately hopeful. The story of Silicon Valley's analog nightmare had transformed into a digital awakening, proving that even the darkest mysteries could eventually find their way into the light of truth. For Melissa Chen, justice had come 30 years late. For countless others, it would come sooner because of the path her case had illuminated. As Detective Victor Reyes drove away from the memorial, the fog began to lift, revealing a clear view of both the mountains and the bay, the natural boundaries that had witnessed Silicon Valley's transformation from orchards to the global center of technological innovation. Within that transformed landscape, Melissa Chen's story had become not just a solved mystery, but a lasting legacy of how technology, guided by human compassion and determination, could serve the timeless pursuit of justice. Up next, you got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.